So I want to preface this review with a couple of things. Number one is I went into reading this book, Blood Meridian, knowing absolutely nothing about it. I had no idea what the book was even about, but it was heavily requested by a number of my subscribers, and I want to do a few more book reviews on this channel, and Blood Meridian was by far the most requested, so I was like, okay, let's get into it. Also, I've never read a book by Cormac McCarthy before. I was aware of the name because I've seen some movies based on his work, like No Country for Old Men and The Road, which are both great, but I had never read any of his work before, so I wasn't used to his writing style, and I didn't know what this story was going to be about, and I went in blind, and to say I was blindsided is definitely an understatement, but I do mean that in a positive way. I also want to say that I am not a history buff in any way, shape, or form, so I'm going to be coming at this review more in a story character aspect rather than the historical accuracies of the book, which I'm sure it is very accurate, and I do believe some of these characters are based on real people, which is even scarier when you think about it, but I'm not a history guy, so I can't really get into that aspect of the book. So I'm going to be reviewing it just more as a general story, and I hope that's all right. And I do have to get into spoilers as well, because this is the kind of book, the kind of story that you really can't talk about without that. And when it comes to book reviews, you really just kind of want to dive in and sink your teeth in and really talk about shit, and it's hard to avoid. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about Blood Meridian. Essentially, the story takes place in the 1800s at some point in the West, and our main character that is just referred to as the Kid, he doesn't really have a name, or if he does, it's never spoken in the book whatsoever. He's just called the Kid. He runs away from home, has an abusive family, gets into fights, and stumbles his way into this gang of essentially like mercenaries that are going around and killing natives, scalping them for a price, and also pretty much killing anybody that gets in their way, and doing a whole number of other horrible things to people along their journey. It is savage, it is dark, it is brutal, it doesn't shy away from the violence. I would say about 75% of this book is just pure, unfiltered violence. And I don't think that he goes overboard in the explanations or anything, but when you really think about the things that are happening here, and then you also do think that these things happened in history, yeah, it can get pretty morbid. But as far as the way that Cormac McCarthy writes, one thing I was not expecting, and this kind of threw me off a little bit, is one, he has run-on sentences that go on for paragraphs of paragraphs where he will just say, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And I definitely was not used to that. But the biggest thing was that he doesn't use quotations when characters are speaking. And so sometimes in the middle of a paragraph, in the middle of an explanation, characters will go into dialogue, and you just have to pick that up as you're reading through. As well, when characters are speaking back and forth to one another, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to tell who exactly is speaking, because it will be half a page of characters speaking back and forth, and if you don't catch who said the first thing first, you kind of have to go back and reread and figure out who's speaking when, and that kind of drove me crazy a little bit. I do believe that's just his writing style, so just something I wasn't used to, but it definitely was. I'd say if I have any cons with this book, it has nothing to do with the story or the characters. It just has to do with, I guess, confusion in the writing style. He also, of course, used a lot of old dialect of how people would have talked back then. And with that, you know, you kind of gather things through context clues, what people are saying, but it can make it a little bit difficult to get through at times when you are a little bit confused on who is speaking and they're using old dialect and you're trying to decipher what they're trying to say. And you have a character like the judge that speaks in these philosophical monologues that go on for quite some time. But he was awesome. We're going to get to that. Now, with the main character, the Kid, what was interesting about the way that Cormac McCarthy approached this story is that the Kid doesn't really have much of a personality of his own, but I think that this is intentional. Again, I went into this blind, so I don't know exactly what he's trying to say with this story, but the Kid is introduced early on, and, you know, he's struggling, finding his way through life or whatever, and he gets involved with one gang that's going to go down to Mexico and kill a bunch of Mexicans because everyone is racist and everyone is horrible in this book. And he gets they get attacked, and he's, I think he's the only survivor, or at least one of the survivors, and then he gets tangled up with the Glanton gang, which is essentially the mercenaries I was talking about before, and one of the, well, before I get to him, sorry, a little off-the-cuff review, so I'm a little bit unorganized. There's a lot I want to say, but what's interesting is that once the kid joins the group, he doesn't really do a whole lot. Like, he does stuff. Like, every character does things. But he really turns into more of, like, an observer. And he kind of feels like, I guess, us as the audience, like, it's not written in first person or anything, but I get the feeling that once the kid joins the gang, we're really meant to just observe what they're doing. And since the kid is the newest, youngest member, we're using him as a vessel to observe. And that's kind of how I took it, because yes, he does things and he has characterization, but he's really just kind of part of the gang. He's not really like an important member of the gang. You know, he's not the leader, he's not the judge, he's just part of the gang. And for a large portion of the middle section of this book, you're literally just watching them go through and do a bunch of horrible shit. But also everybody in the book is horrible. Like the natives are also depicted as being like violent and chaotic and, you know, like dripping blood all over themselves when they go out and attack and everything. And the way that they would chop up the bodies of, you know, the people that they massacre. But then also our main characters are doing pretty much the same exact thing where you know, they're scalping people, they're getting paid for it, they're going on this journey, and just massacring people. Again, like, everybody is just so 10 out of 10 inconceivably racist to, like, every single group of people there is. And it goes on like that. And we just experience event after event after event of all of these massacres and all of these killings and all of these things that happen. And that's the majority of the book. So if you're not on board for that kind of a dark journey, the book is probably not going to be for you. Now, in the midst of that, there's kind of all this talk about humanity and philosophy from this character, the judge. And the judge is the only thing maybe from this book that I have heard, or like I've heard people talk about, like it's come up in just various places that I've been online, you know, when people would talk about antagonists or novels or something. The judge is something that I remember people talking about. The judge has an actual name, but he's mostly just referred to as the judge in the book. And what is he the judge of? Well, that's what a lot of the characters ask. That's what a lot of the characters mention. And if you're going to ask me, I think he is just the judge of evil in humanity, or maybe just humanity in itself, in that it is inescapable to be part of that evil, because the judge just absolutely thrives in it. The judge is somebody, he goes on this like, okay, let me just try to explain this, all right? So first of all, the judge is like super tall, he's hairless, he's bald, smooth head, like very pale white. I have a theory that the judge is actually an engineer from Prometheus, because that's how he's described. He's also incredibly strong. Just wanted to throw that image out there for you guys. But no, yeah, so the judge is a part of this gang, and he just basks and thrives in all kinds of depravity and evil and darkness, and kind of believes that to be what humanity actually is. He also just seems to be this omnipotent force. Now, again, reading this for the first time, not reading any of Cormac McCarthy's work, I don't know how much he delves into the supernatural. Like, for Stephen King, for example, like, as soon as you meet the judge in the beginning, if this were a Stephen King book, I'd be like, he's a fucking supernatural force. Like, he's a demon or a devil or something. Like, he's something, right? Because that's just the presence that he has when he's introduced. But because it's Cormac McCarthy, an author I'm unfamiliar with, and the story has like historical basis, I just kind of like removed that from my head. I was like, that's just me being like a horror movie fan, a Stephen King fan. I was just like, I'm throwing that in there, and that's not what it's meant to be. And then you get to the end scene of the book, and I'm like, fuck. That's what it is. Because the judge is somebody that is incredibly intelligent and incredibly strong. And I think that's also why he's very terrifying, is because he is so smart compared to a lot of the other characters that just aren't as learned, you know, like they just, I don't even know if that's a word, but like they just aren't educated, right? Like they're people that are just trying to survive. You know, they have to rely on just their dumb luck and also their own capability of violence to continue to survive, right? They're not really like highly educated people, but the judge, even though he's part of that group, seems to know things that nobody else knows. He knows things about how to make like gunpowder. He knows about geology. He is aware of like animals that nobody else has seen. Like he just has this knowledge, but everyone just kind of dismisses it. You know what I mean? Like it's like everyone is kind of terrified of the judge, but at the same time, they don't think too deeply into it. They're just like, dude, he's a weird dude. He's kind of crazy. I don't know. Just stay away from him. But the things that he brings up and the things that he knows in comparison to what every other character knows is like there's something else about this guy. Like he's either world traveled or whatever the case may be. But then I think the interesting thing about that is like, okay, so if he is super intelligent and he is world traveled, why is he doing the thing that he's doing? Why is he in this group of sadistic, disgusting people doing sadistic, disgusting things? And he doesn't seem to care about the money. He doesn't seem to care about any kind of notoriety. He just seems to enjoy the chaos. And I think this is probably why he's regarded as a popular, I won't even say villain, because I don't think anybody in this book is a antagonist, because everybody is horrible. So like he does become an antagonist in like a section of the book to the kid, but like I don't know, it's hard to consider him that, just given the nature of everybody in this book. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so he has this whole, he would tell stories around the campfire and stuff, and he has this whole philosophy. Like one thing is that he says is really terrifying is like, if something exists without my knowledge, it is like, it's without my permission. Like things are not allowed to exist without my permission. Just kind of scary to begin with. And then he also talks about war and how this is the main component in which humans are designed for. This is where we thrive. This idea of play becoming real, becoming war. Like how kids play with each other, war to him is play. And it's like, it is this sort of like survival of the fittest thing. It is this, this idea that people have this tendency towards the darker aspects of everything, but to him, there is no light. It's almost as if this is exactly what we're designed for. He talks about like how hundreds of years from now, people are going to be doing the same thing, and that's where the true, I don't know the words he used, I apologize, but it's like the people that really understand what it means to be human are the people that are going to be engaged in this kind of stuff, this life or death stuff. He talks about, a gamble of like flipping a card over. If it's your card, if you win, you live. If you lose, you die. Somebody that lives on the edge between life and death, like knowing that any possible moment you could die. And it's like, is that why he does all of these things? But there's even more to it than that, because there are so many moments of the judge where he just is completely unscathed the entire time. He almost has this sort of immortality to him, where every single battle that they get into, he's never injured. Everyone else around him dies, but he continues to go forward. There's a scene where they're in a battle and he just like breaks somebody's arm like it's nothing. Like he's described as like a really tall, strong dude. He's an engineer from Prometheus, I told you. But just the fact that he can do all of these things and never have a scratch on him and never seem to have any difficulty whatsoever, and just completely embraces and thrives in this world, you really do start to think that there's something supernatural to him. Like, how can he if this book is so realistic and all of these other characters have these massive consequences and yet the judge can continue to thrive, there's got to be something more to it. And then I also thought, okay, maybe even though the book is not written in first person, maybe the book is from the kid's perspective, and maybe we're just looking at the judge as if he's a supernatural entity, right? Like maybe he is just a regular dude who's gotten lucky. Maybe he's not quite as strong as people say, and maybe it's just the kid in the book who is going on this journey with this guy, and that's how he envisions him. That's how he sees them, right? So then I started thinking that. And that's how, you know, a lot of, you know, fables and stories or heroic or even like religious figures, you know, it's like, it's people observe, right? And I said the kid is kind of like an observer. And that's kind of maybe where the judge gets his power from really is just his aura. I don't know, the way that he's observed. But then we get to the final scene. And the final scene is crazy. Like if I read it right. Now there's definitely a chance that I misinterpreted things. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I missed things, right? Because the first time reading Cormak McCarthy, don't know anything about it. I'm just going off of what I read. But the final scene, so there's a point where like the whole band basically gets killed, like Glanton's killed, and then other characters are killed, and the kid runs off, and he's in prison, and he gets out of prison, and he grows older, and the final chapter is basically him now as a man. Well, he's like in his 20s, so for that time period, if you made it to your mid-20s, you're probably doing pretty well in life, but at least as far as living is concerned. So the final scene, he's in this bar, and he hasn't seen the judge in years and years, and the judge is in the bar, right? And they have this kind of conversation back and forth, and the judge is talking about a ritual. You know, it's like, what? He's talking about like a sacrifice, and he's talking about a ritual, and he's talking about, you know, real celebrations have blood spilled. Like it's not a real ritual, it's not a real celebration unless blood is spilled. And weird shit starts happening in this bar, and it's like not supernatural, but it's like so fucking weird. Like they have this bear, and they kill the bear, and the bear bleeds on the floor, and people start dancing, and people start celebrating, and it is like this satanic cult that doesn't even know that they're a cult. And the sacrifice, I'm assuming, is the kid. His fate is kind of ambiguous, but in it, it's almost as if, and here's my interpretation, I don't know if I'm right, but my interpretation is that the judge is a supernatural entity, and he is like this this vessel or this spokesperson of evil incarnate, right? And he makes sure that all of these people basically succumb to their darkest selves and then are killed within that state. Like everybody in the band was eventually killed, most of them, and those people go out and they create more tragic lives for other people. There's one where like the kid grows up and he's involved with like a killing of another kid, and it's like this perpetual cycle. Like we are going to turn you, we're going to shape you into like the most horrible person you can imagine, and then that person is of course going to affect other people's lives, which in turn are going to turn them into horrible people. And like the beginning of the book, like the kid escapes basically an abusive father, if I understood it right. So then again, it's that cycle of abuse, and the judge is like, again, this judge of humanity that is making sure that everything goes according to that. Like everything stays dark, everything stays miserable, everything stays within war, within combat, within bloodshed. And this ritual at the end, I don't know if the kid actually dies or not, but I think it is at least like the end of him. Like this is like, there's no turning back. Like we have broke you, we have turned you into me. You know, the judge is like, we've turned you into me. And he celebrates, you know, he's dancing, and they spill the blood of an animal, and it's just this like chaotic thing. And the judge is exactly the same at the end of the book as he was at the beginning of the book. He doesn't have a character arc. He doesn't change. He is this force that changes everything else around him. Yeah. So what I got really is that this is a story about despair and one of the darkest times, I guess, of American history at least, and how that just spreads and affects everything. And I guess for me, the judge is that character that just makes sure everything is going according to plan. Now, like I said, I haven't read any of his other work, but like the movie No Country for Old Men ends kind of on a darker note of Tommy Lee Jones's character just being like, I have no idea what is happening anymore. Like, I am not prepared for this new world of evil, right? And like Anton basically gets away and Josh Brolin's character dies. It ends on the sour note, right? So I feel like that is his style, and that he writes about, you know, the darkest aspects of humanity with this sort of, I don't want to say like nihilistic view, but maybe it's just realistic, you know, maybe it's just putting the mirror up to what exists, and maybe the judge is just the mirror, but everything that happens around him is real, or, you know, was real. Like, again, I can't compare it on the historical accuracies. I'm just not a history buff like that. I'm just a guy that likes stories. But as far as this story goes, there's nothing uplifting here. You know, there's no levity here. This story is dark. It's filled with violence, but it was good. I definitely enjoyed it, so let me know what you guys think down below in the comments if you have read it or if you listen to the audiobook or whatever. This is a book that still has never become a movie, so maybe it's time. Maybe I should direct. No, I shouldn't direct it. But let me know what you think of this down below. Leave your thoughts about the judge character. Is he supernatural? Is he not supernatural? Is the point just to make us talk about it and wonder if he is? But let me know all your thoughts and opinions down below. Again, I apologize if I just radically misinterpret things. You know, first time reading it, I dove in head first, just blind. So this is what I got. This is what I got coming out of the other end. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Please give the video a like and a comment. Help it out in the algorithm. I deeply appreciate it. Thanks, as always, for watching. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I'd appreciate it if you thought about the Patreon or channel memberships. I could use the help. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.